My ticker is ticking. My name is Gerry Fialka. It's March 7, 2020. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Jane Wodening. Is that the correct way to say that?
Wodening.
Woodling?
Wodening.
Thank you for pronouncing it correctly. The first question, Jane, is what's the best thing for a human being?
The best thing for a human being? I don't understand. For a human being to be or in favor of a human being?
Either way will work. As I said, you can put it in the context you want. How do you want to answer it? You could answer it both ways.
And I think that's too big a question for me to answer. I could go into a riff about there's too many human beings, or I could go into a riff about human beings are such excellent creatures, and
Right.
one could just go on and on.
That's good. But let's just say, for a human being, what's a good thing for a human being? If it's not the best, what's a good thing for a human being?
A happy life.
Happy life. That's good. Jane, what's your favorite form of information, how information comes into you? How you receive information?
Vibes.
Vibes? Wow, so that's sort of like energy? What's another word for vibes? How would you suss that out a little?
Personal energy. I would say there's an electricity that comes out of everything, and it affects everything.
Yeah. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
I'm trying to understand. It's so confusing. The more you get into details, the more details there are, and so you're kind of going the wrong direction by going further and further into the details. But at the same time, you're finding very fascinating stuff as you go more and more into the details. But really, I think backing up and getting the whole the something like a big picture is more to the point. I don't know. That's just my viewpoint.
I like that. A big picture is what I often see like comprehensive people. So do you think this need or want to collect information is in us, in humans innately, or is it something we invented or learned?
Well, I think it kind of goes along with curiosity that you see in every animal. Curiosity and an interest in what's around them to say, what is that? What is it? Why is it edible? I mean, that's the first question maybe, and then can you play with it, or what, how does it react? And so, yeah, I think it comes from basic curiosity.
Yeah. So you'd say curiosity, this need to play, is innate in us.
Well, there would be if you for instance if a deer was nosing around and found a frog that jumped, and the deer would jump, and then the frog would jump, and there would be a little choreography that would go on for a bit, and, and they would learn from that, each of them.
Yeah. Do thoughts create emotions?
Yes.
Do you think, just in general, of course it's both and it depends, do you think humans are more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
I don't wish to answer that.
That's all right.
But I could go off on a
yeah, whatever.
The thinking and feeling are similar. I don't know. No, it's a huge question. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, because it is. We invented the two words, but indeed, we're probably locked in thinking and
thinking.
feeling.
What is thinking? I mean, we could try and go and define thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we could spend the whole day defining that, and feeling is more, you can kind of point out things or give examples, but thinking, you can't give examples.
Yeah.
Are we thinking, or are we what,
Yeah.
so skip it.
Yeah, very good. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness? So is like consciousness there and we're just sort of detecting it, or are we actually creating it?
I don't know what part the brain plays in consciousness. I have the feeling that non-life is conscious.
Non-life.
Non-life is,
Right.
is conscious. And so I think the brain might be conscious of things, but it's not the first.
Right.
It's not the. It isn't where it starts. It's like being becomes. You have to be conscious. If you are an atom, you have to be conscious in a way of your environment.
Right.
In some way. In some way. I mean, it might. Who knows what it feels like, but
Yeah.
or if it feels.
Or if it even feels, that was good. And by non-life, what would be an example of non-life? Like a rock? Or what do you mean by the word non-life?
An atom.
An atom, okay.
An atom is non-life.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Great, thank you.
A particle.
Particle and waves.
A wave. Particle wave.
Yeah, you know,
Particle
Frank Zappa loved this line, wavicles.
Wavicle.
Half wave and half particle.
Okay.
So what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
As to speed, generally it would be the light, I think, but there's the thing in quantum mechanics, what is it called? Where two things where there's going to be something that be divided in half and the two parts will go away. And they aren't necessarily parts, but they are twins and they go apart and then they happen at the same time. Yeah, even though it's 8 o'clock here and 4 o'clock there,
Right.
It's still, the same moment looking at the globe or looking at the universe. It happens at once. So that's, you could say that's faster than light, but
Yeah, that was good. Was that quantum entanglement?
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, also James Joyce and Frank Zappa said all times are happening now.
Yes, well, that's of course, that's right. Yes,
You think
I
that
understand
that's-
that. I
yeah.
understand that. That certainly enlarges the sense of one's environment.
Beautiful. You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. That's Audre Lorde said that. Yvonne Rainer responded, yes, you can if you expose the tools. Those two comments aside, what new tool or tools do you suggest for anything?
To what? To do what?
Well, she referred to it as
Dismantling an architecture of people?
dismantling the master's house using the
Master's
master's tools.
That's a very human concept. That humans have this love of destruction that is. It's something I understand. I see it. There's a feeling that I see it, but I don't really. I think actually I don't know. Destruction is something that humans do.
That is a great statement. In other words, you'd rather not take a point of view that it's good or bad. You're just saying, you're observing it, that's what humans do.
That's right. I'm observing that's
Yeah.
what people do.
Yeah.
I can't go on about about the tools.
Yeah, we call that suspended judgment. You're making an observation. Very good. Why are most artists liberal?
It takes an open mind to do something creative.
What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
What
do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
am I going to get to sleep?
Thank you. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Oh,
Yeah. Jane, can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
I remember in a crib, or lying on my back and my fat little feet kicking and screaming because I heard my mother downstairs making noises. And I screamed until she came up and she knew what I wanted. She picked me up and sang to me, but she didn't sing long enough for me to relax. And so she put me down there, and she was in such a hurry. People were coming over, and she went back downstairs, and I started screaming again. Of course, she didn't come up. That's all I remember.
Wow. Do you think memory is more a curse or more a blessing?
I don't see a difference between the two.
Yeah. Could you tell me one role model within your immediate family, growing up, just briefly, what you mainly got from them? What impact they had on you? And the question is two-part, within your immediate family and then outside your immediate family.
My Uncle Marsh was an adventurer. He had a smile for everything, including things that he disapproved of. And he flew airplanes, and he was brave and sharp and right on and totally trustworthy, even though he drank martinis like crazy, but he was always kind to children.
What a great...
And I got to ride in his airplane numerous times.
What city is this, or town?
He lived in a suburb of Kansas City.
And that's where you were raised?
No.
You were raised where?
Well, first in a suburb of Chicago, and then at 11 I moved to the small towns of Colorado, several small towns.
Oh, I got you, yeah, okay. Then outside your immediate family, someone who made an impact on you just briefly, and what was the impact? It doesn't have to be early in your life, but
Oh, I see.
Either way.
Somebody outside of the family. Outside of the family, I don't know. Well, there was Hitler, I guess, was a person who had a way of yelling and controlling, and somehow that was a horrifying feat that he could take the brains of thousands of people, and I can see that happening, and it always upsets me. I see it happening in a lot of different ways. I mean, it wasn't just Hitler yelling.
yeah.
Other ways.
You would say that's film clips or radio?
I'm
How are you hearing Hitler? Film clips or radio? Or both? How did you experience it?
That would be the news on the movies. Yeah, the movie house.
The movie house.
I didn't go to the movies really until we were in Colorado. Sometimes I would go to the movies. I guess at about 13 I started going to the movies, and I don't remember going to a movie before then, even if it was only
Right.
a dime in Western Springs still.
Right.
I was awfully young to be decisive about any of that. Nobody invited me.
So you see movies at 13-ish. When did you first started seeing TV?
I fought it off for years in the family. I didn't want my children glued to the tube. I needed them to be able to be outside, running around in the woods and finding their way as individual entities.
Beautiful. And where do you think you got that resistance to TV? I'm saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying, where did you get that? On your own or from your parents? On how they raised you, or you said, hey, this
What's the difference between my parents and the environment? I mean,
That's a great question. See, the whole purpose of this interview is to invent new questions. So that was a great answer. There's some difference, but who knows? It's so.
I mean, when you get that young,
Yeah.
it really is that's the center of the environment, and anything else is affected by it.
Yeah, you're right. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
No, my parents decided between themselves before my brother and I were born to raise their children to think for themselves. And this was an important decision, and sometimes my mother would bite her tongue to do it, but she intended to do it. She had made the vow.
Yeah. Did you ever gravitate towards any religion? Or
There was when I was a little kid, the girl up the block said, "Would you like to come to Bible studies with me?" And I said, "Yes, anything. You know, what are we doing? Is it fun?" "Oh yeah, we just go down to the church and we hear a lot of stories and then we go home." I mean, and I did. I enjoyed the stories so much. From the Old Testament, I learned all about like lions and
right.
Parting of the waters and all kinds of wild things that happened, and but then I got over that, and I was tempted by Christianity, but I had no. A few years later, when I was like 15 or 16, again, there was the same kind of thing, and Carolyn was the daughter, actually, of the preacher, and the preacher was a lovely man, such a gentle and lovely man, a Presbyterian preacher, and he was very interested. We were in a room, and I was excited about the stories, and he stood with his back to the bright sunlight, and I was coming down with a cold, so the sun was really affecting my eyes. And he was saying, would you take Jesus Christ as your Savior? And I had tears welling out in my eyes, but it was because of the sun. It wasn't because of anything he said at all. And so he invited me to go to join the church, and then there were like these things, rituals, and these fun parties and field trips, and then there was this moment when I was to dress up and go up and get touched by, I don't know, was it oil or holy water or something, and he said, "Do you take Jesus Christ as your Savior?" And he was like bending over me, and I was looking up at him. "Oh, do I have to say yes?" I don't want to say yes. I don't want to lie in front of all these good people. This is church. I don't want to lie. I was respecting the church.
Right.
And finally he said, "Just say yes." And so I did, and then I left the church and him and his daughter and everybody. And it was a sad loss for all of us.
Yeah. Wow. So if God does exist, what would you like God to tell you after you die?
Good job, Jane.
Do you pray?
Yeah.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
There's a difficulty about good and evil, because here's the mother wolf, and her children are hungry, and she kills a mother rabbit whose children are hungry.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I don't see that you can make a distinction between good and evil.
Yeah. How do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? I'm going to set this one up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Fellini says, I need an enemy. Chinese proverb goes, he who cannot agree with their enemy will be controlled by them. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to the first one, Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
It's probably up to, well, I understand, because you're saying you're making them exist in your mind. So, oh, yes, there's the enemy,
Yeah.
and that's my enemy. And there's a cat, my cat, my cat's evil twin. They look exactly alike, and if I see the other cat, I have to look at his behavior to see if it's the evil twin or my dear cat. And I call him the evil twin, but I'm of course being totally sympathetic to my cat.
Right.
And I don't know. It's just I do so that I can tell them apart.
Right.
And it's just an interesting thing that they are so similar.
Yeah. Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we as humans have to recreate things in order to get it? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play and watch people act out life? Why don't we just live life?
Yeah, that's I was always a very shy child, and I first spent my infancy, really, my busy mother, she gave me a dog to watch me, and the dog would bark if there was any trouble. And but there was usually not any trouble because I was fascinated with the dog, and we became intimate in ways of communication, and I understood the dog, and she understood me, and we had and then the door would open, and the dog would be asleep, and I would be looking somewhere else, and my mother would say, well, you're never playing with the dog. And she finally actually gave away the dog when she had pups. Along with the pups, she gave away the mother too. And I don't remember it consciously at all, but that's the way I've worked it out. And so that when I was 5, I was really sophisticated in handling dogs. I could handle the dog next door snapped at everyone. And I was wandering lonely up the alley, and he came out snarling and snapping and snarling, and I knew he had a very strong chain, and there was a kind of a fence, but it wasn't much. And I thought, here's somebody who wants to talk to me, who wants to communicate with me. And so I slowly reached my hand toward the dog, and he kept was barking and snarling, and then he was like sniffing at my head, just eagerly, bark, bark, bark. It was like he was showing that he was really interested in me and understanding my chemistry. And finally, I knew he wanted me to touch his cheek, to dare to do that. And I finally, when I saw that he wasn't going to bite me, I did touch his cheek, and I scratched it, and we were friends forever after that. I was the one person that could handle him sometimes, and
That's beautiful.
that was age of 5. So I became really involved with relating to anybody by gesture, posture, tone. Even though he was snarling and barking, there was always this thing in the eye that was so like, God, I want to know this person, but I don't know how to communicate except by snarling. And then he understood to just stop, and that would do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I understood you saying there, it relates to your word early on, you use vibes, that you can understand or sense people's vibes, or other other creatures' vibes.
Yeah, so I was going by vibes in that occasion.
Yeah. And so what do you think the motive of the cave artist was? You know, not what anthropologists say or what Werner Herzog did in his movie, just in general. Why do you think humans created paintings on caves? What was their motive?
There's a yearning in people to, and I think it's really hard to say. I would imagine that there was what we would call a religious feeling, although it's like a wanting to relate to the universe, wanting to somehow understanding that the world is bigger than they can encompass, and how can they reach that? They can reach that by understanding the ox, you know, to draw the ox and the horns and have it be like being an ox, even though it's not like concise detail. It shouldn't be. It's like the being of the ox. If you can draw the ox in from a human viewpoint, I don't know. It's really hard.
No, you explained it well, because it's, you know, you like look at Albert Dürer doing these rhinoceroses and they're almost like scientifically, graphically perfect. But then you can see some other painting of an animal and it evokes the animal, but it's not graphically and mathematically and linearly perfect.
Was it Dürer who did the rhinoceros?
Yeah.
I just love that rhinoceros.
I know, it's so do I. That was a good one. Well, you know, McLuhan has a line that I love to repeat is, the Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can. You know, the cave artists weren't going, let's go do art. It's just like kids. They don't go, I'm doing art now. They just do it. They don't have a motive. Well, that's the funny thing. It's not a deliberate motive that they can articulate. Maybe they can, but, you know.
Art is a difficult word.
Yeah.
It's a judgment.
It's a judgment. That's really well put. Yeah.
And going to do art is just the silliest notion. We could go draw, you know. We could go paint on the walls of the cave. We could jam with our ukulele and our guitar. What art is really something that you would be using for what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's a word that is not relevant really to oneself. It's relevant to other people.
Yeah.
So if you and I are jamming on your guitar and
Yeah.
my banjo, it would take John to come and say, that's art.
That's right.
But we would say, oh, piffle, we're just, you know, we're jamming.
Oh, piffle, P-I-F-F-L-E.
Well,
What a word. But do you have ESP?
sorry, that's a 40s word.
I like that word. Do you have ESP? Because how'd you know I play guitar?
Oh, I was about to give you the banjo, but I thought, well, I'd rather have it.
Oh, that was nice. So, Jane, what first...
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for
little.
answering that.
A little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
my mother was too, and
Yeah.
it's in the family. But it's not strong. It's not like, it doesn't send us into trances or
Right.
stuff.
Did you grow up a reader?
I read Alice in Wonderland, and I can recite the Jabberwock with great enthusiasm, and I think the Walrus and the Carpenter, which is much longer, and I loved Alice in Wonderland.
But
and Dr. Dolittle and a lot of.
yeah, were your parents readers and you learned from
Yes.
example, or they told you to
They
read?
they were readers, yes,
Yeah.
they were readers.
What first attracted you to pursue writing when you went, hey, I can do that?
I didn't say that
Yeah,
until I was 39. I always said, I can't do that. I can't put words together. And I think it was partly because that dog, when I was an infant, taught me dog language, and I was thinking, a dog language being vibes and gestures and there's perception and I don't know where perception leaves off, and I don't know what begins, and I wish I could define it in a scientific manner, but I can't. But anyway, I was perceiving, I was corresponding, I was expressing myself, so that in any conversations that were going on around me, I would say, yeah, sometimes, or I would say, well, I agree with that, or no, you're wrong, because, and I would try and think of like a short phrase that would explain why. I was best monosyllabic.
right. So at 39, what kicked you over and go, I can do that? I mean, what was the thing that said, I can write?
Well, my friend Barbara and I were talking about, like, we'd like to be writers, and I would like to be a writer so that I could finish a thought, She wanted to be a writer because she wanted to write poetry. And so we said to each other, okay, we vowed to give each other a piece of writing as soon as we did.
Yeah.
Wrote it, and neither one of us ever did. And then I heard she was dying, and I went to see her, and I didn't say anything. I couldn't speak. She was looking at me like, well, and I was saying, and there was not a word passed between us. Although she was able to speak, she had spoken to Stan, and she had spoken to the family in general, but when it came to me, it was like, I can't. And she gestured, it's okay.
Yeah.
And by that gesture, she passed me the torch, and I could write.
So, you talked with your eyes with her, with eye contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She had beautiful eyes.
Yeah.
Her eyes were very attractive and available, and yeah. So I think we understood each other. And then I finished the story a week later. And I called up her daughter and I said, I'd like to read this story to Barbara. Can I come down? And the daughter said, I'm sorry, she died last night. She probably died just as I finished the story, so that, then I thought, I can do it.
Yeah.
I can do it. Give me another, And I thought of another story, and I told that, a story that I've been telling for years and years. So.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So, what do you think the functions? Let's just stay on poetry for a moment. What is the function of poetry?
Well, it's somebody reaching into another perspective on things, and so it's showing that person and anyone who cared to join him that perspective and the correctness of it.
T.S. Eliot said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. Everyone has this inner voice. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Dog.
That is great.
Well, dog, by dog I mean any any living thing, that
Yeah.
it isn't just dog. I mean, but I learned from a dog.
No, I know, because you have this phrase, dog language. and
Yes.
It's an all-encompassing term,
Uh-huh.
you're saying, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's good. So a screenwriting teacher told me that great art or great screenplay or great writing is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great art or great writing, great films when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
I can't think I mean, let's see, I find a pen and pencil, or I get to go to the computer and find a blank page. And,
Yeah.
I don't, that's my intention, because I want to write
I
want to write about this thing.
Yeah.
There's your use of the word intention is interesting, because Stan would always say, tell them it was intentional. Tell them it was intentional, when I knew that he was just following the muse. He was doing what the muse told him to do. It had nothing to do with his intent. But he felt that it was more respectable if it was his intent.
Yeah.
I felt it was definitely not worth bothering with if it was his intent. So that was a difference of opinion that we
Yeah.
had. And I felt, that I was respecting him more than he was.
Yeah. Yeah, that was heavy. So, yeah, the word muse came up in studying your book, how there was an article that said muse in the New American Cinema issue, and it had the terminology defined, and it said muse, see ego. And then when you went to ego, it said see muse. I thought that was a funny little trick, But, I thought your book was very important.
Which book is this?
Your book on Stan.
I don't think I've written a book on Stan.
Well, it's called Brackage's Childhood.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So in studying that book, that came up. So, but just to stay on this idea of intention in writing.
I don't think he had come to the muse when he was 12. I mean, I don't remember talking about the muse. But
No,
yeah.
it was
Maybe in
my
college.
research
Oh.
about the topics
okay.
you covered in that.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out the same thing in reviewing your book. I was trying to figure out the same thing.
Yeah.
Is this something in our DNA that you're a creative person, or is it something that you're taught or learned from your environment, or is it both, or
All I know is I can spot them a block away, artists,
Yeah,
generally.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But this
But that
thing
might
about
be from the light in their eyes,
that's a good indicator. Marcel Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. When you're writing, how much are you thinking of your reader? Is there any thought of your reader?
I'm writing a history of the Earth right now, and I'm very excited to discover details of the history of the Earth.
Yeah,
And I have to learn scientific language
Yeah.
to do it, and then it's very hard to translate what they say into human speech. And the more human it is, the more people will understand it if I tell it, if I can tell what they say into human speech. I don't know, it's really hard to make that transition all the way.
yeah,
So that now I realize I have to take out all the Latin names, because I can't remember them for one thing, and I
Right.
wouldn't expect anybody else to remember them. So I am being conceding in a way
Yeah.
to my readers, but I'm also conceding to myself as a reader because I want to understand it as a kid.
Yeah, you want
Because kids are clear.
Yeah.
There's clarity in viewing as a child.
Yeah.
And so I have to talk to that part of myself. So if that's considering the reader, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're trying to make it accessible and readable, and still, you totally answered the question. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
but
Jane-
it's really for myself.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's how I would understand it and how I could latch
Yeah.
onto it.
So Marshall McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. So like clothing is an extension of our skin. Knife and fork extends our teeth.
Salvador, why didn't you hear that one?
Yeah. You know, the shutter in a camera or projector extends our eyelid. What does the writing utensil extend for you? What humanness? Whether it's a pencil or a keyboard.
It's an act of translation always, as I've been saying, you know, I have to translate, so it's coming, it's shifting from one part of the brain to the other.
So you mean left and right hemispheres?
Something, whichever.
Yeah.
That's I was it this way or this way, you know.
Right.
Or maybe it's from over here too.
That's good.
But I don't know if it's even the brain that I'm looking for in the way, or I think the source is really somewhere else. So that the source, the vibe, you see, the vibe reaches out everywhere. So that I'm very aware of being a hologram of the universe.
Yeah.
And so that I'm in touch with everything in a way.
Yeah.
However distantly, you know, and so it's to put that into language is to make a hologram out of the hologram or something.
Peter Greenaway said that cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. I'm not saying storytelling is good or bad, but I'm just saying that's what he said. Cinema is left much too rich to be just left to storytelling. So if you take 135 years, that's how long cinema's been around, most of it's been filming plays. Sorry.
Filming plays, yes.
Plays, yeah, it's just filming plays.
Well, that's
yeah, it's theater.
useful.
And so,
it's
yeah.
useful in many ways.
But are experimental filmmakers telling stories a different way or doing something completely different?
Well, I don't think that Stan was telling stories. He was, although he was unnecessarily down on narrative, but he loved to read stories to children, and he read quite a bit to me and to my children. He was, but his films, for instance, are would you call them pictorial, or you would call them, they are
Abstract?
well, they're, I don't think they're stories.
Yeah.
I think that he was not into narrative then.
Yeah.
But he had started in narrative in his psychodramas.
Yeah. So, what are the services and disservices of ghettoizing or marginalizing experimental film? Jackson Pollock was on the cover of Life magazine in 1949, so regular folks could develop an aesthetic for experimental painting. There was no Stan Brakhage or Bruce Conner or Maya Deren on Life magazine covers. generally it's privileged, entitled people who develop an avant-garde aesthetic and dominate the experimental film world. Any comment?
Well, you can't compete with Hollywood.
Yeah.
So Hollywood is bigger.
Hollywood is what?
Bigger.
Bigger, yeah.
And that's really hard to compete with. But I think, you know, and I think the word experimental is really, I think I was talking with Amy yesterday, and we realized that probably it was Amos Vogel who had a film venue which was experimental. He was bringing in like scientific experiments and documentaries of all sorts, and then these young people that were making art. Oh, there's that hummingbird. She's up here. So I think experimentalism. It's really too bad. I mean, you know, Beat was good, Hippie was good, but
Beat and Hippie were good terms of experimentalism.
experimentalism it's I don't know, but there it is, and so that's what we're stuck with. It's like having a difficult name like Abigail, or I don't know.
Yeah. No, well put. So McLuhan said there's no such thing as a good or a bad movie. It's a good or a bad viewing experience. Any comment?
No.
So what's more important, conviction or compromise?
No.
So you've accomplished a lot. I really enjoyed your book. And I know you've written several books I haven't read. I saw a 15-minute talk of yours on YouTube, and I really enjoyed it. It's very playful and informative.
Really? On YouTube?
Yeah, it just came out. I mean, it's you giving a speech for
a speech in Netherlands.
Yeah, it's very good.
Oh, I'm glad.
So in your accomplishments in your life, how would you rate these three elements? Luck, skill, and ambition. What plays the most important part, second and third?
I can't, it's very hard for me to make a hierarchy out of things like that.
Okay. And how do you explain your longevity? How old are you right now?
I'm 83.
That's pretty dang good. You've lived a long life. And how do you explain it? You think it's more DNA or more lifestyle choice?
It is both, I'm sure. I do take after my father, who died at 77, but I have some of my mother's more longevity, although her mother died when I was a little child. So I don't know. I do try to be careful, and I try to eat in a way that's, I don't know, works. And I try not to overdo too much, but I have to exercise, I know, or I will shrivel up.
Yeah. Do you think this relationship you've had with animals has helped your longevity? I mean, what do you feed? Tell us about the reciprocal you get from animals and animals get from you.
Well, there's something that we might call love, or a positive feeling between humans and other species of life. As a matter of fact, I mean, I have loved a tree, and I felt that the tree loved me, you know. And I have loved the moon, and I felt that the moon loved me. And there's a thing of reaching out and being one with whatever, whoever, and so there's a circulation. The circulation is reaching out and going. It's not where you're just saying, oh, I really want that person to be near me always, you know. But to say, yeah, you know, that is a beautiful thing, you know, that hummingbird that came by. God, I hope she's does it goodness this year.
Yeah. We're lucky. We get to watch hummingbirds a lot out here.
Oh, they're nice.
They
yeah.
are amazing.
I've got to put out the sugar when I get home.
Do you find that your children have acquired that love for animals as well?
To some extent. To some extent. They certainly have developed a sensitivity in being able to reach out. But I think that the need for love that I had as a child was something that I didn't allow. I mean, I loved them. I was with them. I embraced them, you know, which was something I did partly because I hadn't been hugged and petted and held and stuff as a child. So I think that the need for love was really a basic strength that, you know, shoved me into it.
Yeah.
A need as a strength. I mean, need is a kind of a direction, you know.
Yeah. It's good. So this book that I so enjoyed came out in 2015. It's called Brackett's Childhood. I was curious of the process. It was written basically 30 years after. Did you take notes? Did you remember, or did you tape record Stan telling you these? Was it?
No, it was in the early 80s. I was writing at that time. I was writing stories. I was asking the neighbors, you know, tell me this tales of the history of Lump Gulch, and they were telling me things out of the 1930s when the gold fever was back, you know, briefly, and so I thought, God, I should get Stan's childhood, his stories. He's got these wonderful anecdotes from his childhood, and I'm confused as to how they fit in with each other, and I'd like to put them in order and get them all and make a book as long as we can stand to put up with the interviews.
Yeah.
So he said yes, he would do that, but give him some time. And really, it was really a month between each chapter. He would tell me about his birth, and as much as, you know, and what his thoughts were, what the, you know, what he heard from his adopted mother, and how that worked, and what the real mother, the tales of her, and what his dreams were of who his actual father was, and like that. And that was his birth. So I took notes, like 2 or 3 on a page. I was like, I was slow at writing.
Handwritten notes.
Handwritten hints, like, you know, Thomas Wolfe, you know. Okay, and or the name, you know, like Sanders. I don't know. Anyway, so then I would go immediately and get to work on that chapter and write it. Not in his voice, because there were 2 things in his voice that I didn't think were relevant. One was the bitterness against his mother. It was like he was going to call this a morality about how awful his mother was, and blaming everything on his mother. And the other was that he was a sophisticated 50-year-old man, and I didn't want that tone to be in the book either. I wanted the child to be in the book, and so I did the best I could to say from a
Yeah.
child, and he was a very precocious child. I don't know how well I did in quoting him or whatever, but I did what I could as I saw it. Developed chapter after chapter. It was a month between each. It took 23 months. Took
Yeah.
like 2 years to write it, and there's 23 chapters there, and that was happening as our marriage was slowly kind of sagging into an end.
So you put that aside and the book was pretty much done, and then many years later you said, I'm going to put it out?
Yeah,
It was pretty much done then.
it was really quite, it was done.
Done.
It was done, but
But you'd rather not publish it then. You waited 30 years and then you published it.
I couldn't publish it then because I was writing about him,
Yeah.
and he was leading me, and
Gotcha.
everybody was like, as though we were two sides.
Yeah.
They were on his side because he was much more interesting, and I realized that if I put the book out then, it would almost seem like
Yeah.
an accusation, but it wasn't an accusation at all. It was
Yeah.
like my wonderful collection of these wonderful childhood tales of this very precocious child.
Yeah.
And so I saved it for, was it only 30 years? I think it was more than that. And then I was cleaning the coat closet, and I on the hat shelf at the top
And you found
where I
it.
started, there was this mass, this pile of manuscripts, and I realized that I was, how old was I, 70? And that if I could get those manuscripts really cleaned up, polished,
Yeah.
and smoothed out, and maybe, do some proofing on it and so on, but not much, that I could get those books in a really clean, strong state, and one after the other, get them out. But the one, that I needed help. Others were all, my stuff. They were like animals and my stories and the two memoirs. But then there was Brackage's childhood, which I thought, this is not entirely mine. This is partly his, and I have to connect with his world.
Yeah.
And so I went to New York, and I, somehow, I can't remember the chronology, but Tony Pippolo
Yeah.
guided me. He's a shrink, and he called me up, was it every week or every 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And he, gave me pep talks.
Yeah.
And said, you got to do this, and so I would, yeah, say, okay, and I'd go back and do it, and then I'd think, oh, crap, but then he kept calling, he'd call me again, and go, and
He's a cheerleader for you.
he was wonderful, and I found actually I had my friend Steve Clay. I came to him because I was thinking, who would publish this crazy thing, because it's just up to the age of 12. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Who wants it? Everybody starts, at the age of 25.
Yeah.
That's when you start a biography, but Granary Books, Steve Clay said yes, he would do it,
Yeah.
and partly because we were old friends, but also he was interested in the whole idea.
Yeah. Jane, it's a really good book, and it helped me a lot because I think all people should be so lucky as to have their early life explored like that in depth. It was really well done.
Well, but one thing you got
me a
to know
lot.
that Stan it was 50 years before he told it, and he
Yeah.
had these stories were
Yeah.
twisted and changed and
Right.
everything, and so I took those stories that he gave me
Yeah.
directly, and I put them down, and that was so it was connecting the remembrance of
Yeah.
the stories, not the actual happenings.
I understand that. Now, the next question is, and I really appreciate your time. The next question is perception reality?
Well, where does reality leave off?
Yeah.
You're talking about a definition of terms.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm out to invent new questions, so that's, you answered it well. Why is it so difficult for humans to consider the possibility that life might be pointless? I'm not saying life is pointless. I'm saying, why is it so hard for humans to consider that it might be pointless?
Is it hard? I've considered it.
Really?
Have you not? I mean, is there anybody who has not considered that? I don't know. It's hard to do. I don't know.
Very good. Lewis Carroll said, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast.
I feel strongly about that.
Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
I don't know about impossible. If I believe in it, I don't think it's impossible, right?
Right. There you go.
But my feeling is that he's talking about religion. That you have to be part of a religion, you have to believe 6 impossible things before breakfast, and you have to believe them blindly.
Yeah. Wow. Because I like that the word believe has the word lie imposed in it.
Yes, it does. Exactly. That's very good.
On what occasion do you lie?
I try to be nicer than I am.
Yeah. It's good. Someone said, that's called manners.
Yeah.
Tom Waits said it best though. He goes, I didn't know I needed an occasion to lie. So tell me one major element of your writing that's changed since you turned 39, and one major element that stayed the same. You know, just in general about your writing.
I'm trying to think of what might have changed. What was the basic thing was to understand.
Yeah.
To understand that situation.
That's stayed the same. You think?
That really is. So I'm trying to understand the history of the Earth, and it's the same thing happening.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand that situation. And any changes might be just simply that across those years I may have learned how to put words together better, but I'm not sure about that because some of the first things I did are really clear and sharp. So I don't know if I really have gained anything across all the years.
No, that's good. They asked James Joyce, "You working on this book?" He's working on this book, and he says, took you a week to get those 12 words?" And he goes, "Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out what order to put them in."
That's lovely.
So Moshe Feldenkrais works with movement and healing. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength.
Yes.
Rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Can you tell me a weakness that you've incorporated to become a strength?
Just about, my feeling is that in weakness is your strength.
Yeah.
That your weaknesses are your strength, and that, so that it's like pulling up the juices of the earth up from the bottom, you know?
Yeah.
And whereas the strength might be, you know, the flower might be the grand part, but it's really the flow of life. I don't know. Anyway, strengths and weaknesses. I would say like the inability to speak was my original strength.
Yeah.
And my original strength is a strong and healthy body. I really like that. I am as strong as you may expect for somebody in my position to be.
Yeah. So American Indians and Eastern culture respect their elders. Can you explain Western culture's disdain for old age?
I think there is a story about Eskimos that when the old lady's teeth wear out where they can't chew the hides, they stop, and everybody agrees that it's time for them to stop and not come along with the group. And I don't know if this is disrespect or actually respecting the health of the tribe. And so if this culture has a disrespect for old age, it's because it has such a respect for the energy of youth.
Yeah.
And so that young should be making the world, and always, you know, the old look at them and they know that the young don't know anything. But the fact is they know that the youth say that about the old people, and then of course they have the power that grows.
Yeah. So
they shove them out. But so you would think that people wouldn't live into their 80s, but we have like counter things. I mean, the culture is destroying the whole globe, but with pollution and all that stuff, you know, and there are people all over the place that are saying, you know, well, let's fix it, you know, let's help. We don't want that to happen, and let's not. And so there's always a backlash, and so that there's always an opposition about that. So that's how I can find a place and go on living at 83, because there is space for old people that is made by this backlash of sympathy for the old or whatever.
Yeah, that was well put. What caused matriarchy?
Well, probably losing the war. The men all died.
Yeah. What's the most significant difference between women and men, physical aside?
Well, the hormones. I mean, are you excluding the hormones too? Where does physical lead off?
That's a great answer. So why do women live longer than men?
They seem to. I think that we go through menopause, and then like we lose a lot of hormones, and men just keep going with it may not be the chemicals of testosterone, or it's like the habits are like, you gotta be tough, and so there's a tension that men carry that women don't carry. That's
the answer I get the most, is that men have tension and they don't get it out. They hold it in. Women have tension and they talk about it and get it out.
Well, talk about it. I don't know about talk about it. I'm not including talking about it. I'm talking about all chemistry. Yeah.
Anger can be a productive emotion when, fill in the blank.
No.
Thank you. You know, this is interesting because I used to ask that question, can anger be a productive emotion? And because it's just yes or no, a friend said, no, change it. Anger can be a productive emotion when? And people think then, oh, it's got to be, so I'm going to fill in. And one person finally says, it can't be a productive emotion. Thank you. How do you find peace of mind, Jane?
With animals, or really mainly with animals, with plants too, trees, I like trees. With my thought that peace of mind is something that you can choose to do.
Yeah, choice. Huh. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Good luck, babe.
I like that answer. One of my favorite answers, this woman said, I love you. I was like, wow, that is...
Oh, that's wonderful.
Is it good? Tell me something good you never had and you never want. So it's good, you never had it, but you never want it.
Riches.
Yeah. What's the healthiest cultural shift you see developing today?
Healthiest cultural shift. Cultural shift. Well, I'm hoping that there's a cultural shift to be open to wild animals and what their feelings are and why they might be important. Although it dulls me to say important to humanity, because can't humanity be important to them just as well?
Them being animals?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like a sense, more of a sense of equality between humans and all, opening up to. I guess it's not possible. I don't know.
No. Well, it's interesting because I don't know if you saw that movie called it's about Nim Chimpsky. It's where they raised the chimp in the family in the 70s, and then.
I don't know if I saw it, but I've seen clips from it.
Yeah, and it's. Maybe you could just elaborate on what it's like to develop like dog language. Most people would know, or maybe we could go this way. People think, oh, my dog loves me. And I go, well, how do you know a dog has the word love in their vocabulary? We don't know. We're anthropomorphizing our language on them. They might just be saying, hey, go to the store, buy me a can of food, open it up, and put it here. But we don't know because we don't have, we think we can talk to animals. And I mean, and you're a good example. You do it. I'm not denying that you do. But I'm just saying, how do you explain that it's not anthropomorphizing our language on them? Like, how do we really know what they're thinking? Or like, I'm not playing doubt, I'm just saying, how do you suss it out? How can you better explain it? Or how can you explain it to me?
You're burgling a lot about
Yeah,
that.
I am.
And that's because I'm snarling at you and sending you bad vibes.
Oh, that's good. That is good. So it is.
But it doesn't help my articulation to do that.
Yeah.
Anthropomorphizing is putting the dog into the shape of the form of the human. That's what the word means. If you put the human into the shape of the dog, so that if you looked at the dog and became in your heart that, with those arrangements, those physical arrangements, and that sense, and that pattern of body and mind, and the tone of the eyes, and these big ears and this incredible nose that can smell things and does this chemistry everywhere it goes. There's huge chemistry lab going along with every animal that is non-human. Well, not every maybe, but well, a lot of them anyway. So if you put yourself into that shape, that would be caninemorphism. Canomorphism.
Canomorphism.
Canomorphism. And so if you want to try canomorphism, that's what I try for. I try to understand that person there, whatever. Ant, you know, phew, oh, look at that. Oh, jeez. Yeah, and so I become the ant, and I have 3 like hot stories about ants, and I understand.
Yeah.
They are civilized.
Do you want to tell us one, or? I'd love to hear one.
I'll tell you the most unbelievable one, and because it's really something. I was sitting in my car under a Palo Verde tree in southern Arizona, I was watching these ants. The ants were having a gathering under the tree. There was an arrangement of roots, so that there was like a large area up above, and then a lower area which was just kind of a narrow strip, and then below that there was another big kind of an area where a lot of ants were down there, a lot of ants were up here, but in that strip there were no ants. But looking off to the side, I saw a procession of 3 ants, and 3 ants, and 3 ants, and 3 ants, and then a big ant with big mandibles. And I watched this procession, moving slowly, and in a wonderful order, where they were like had a separation between each, and moving slowly onto that, I will call it the stage. And so then the 2 outer ants, in each case of the front group, they moved aside and went into the lower group, and left the middle ant standing looking at the lower group. And the second one did the same, and the third, and the fourth. And then the lower, the big ant with the big mandibles, came along, and one after the other bit the head off of the standing ant. And I am sorry, I'm very apologetic, and I apologize to science and to my readers that I freaked out and drove away, because I just wanted to get away from those people, and I realized that they were people, and that was what living things do.
Yeah.
It was a formal execution. The heads all rolled down into the lower group of people. I mean the ants, and that was that. And so I'm sorry I didn't go on with it, but I did. At least I told the story. But do you believe it? Nobody believes it, I think.
Well, I think it was very nice of you to tell me the story. I mean, like it illustrated a lot to me about what living creatures do. So I mean, it's like
ants have these big to-dos, you know. You've seen them surely, and big gatherings of ants, and they're all running around, and it's some kind of social formality, a community thing going on.
It's definitely
a big festival. Not that there's any eating going on. It's just.
Well, I'm attracted to it too, because the first Super 8 footage I ever shot was down in that area in New Mexico, and it was ants coming out of an anthole.
Really?
Yeah, that was when we
that's
were on
wonderful.
family vacation, you
Oh,
know,
that's
and my
wonderful.
dad was shooting home movies, so I shot the ants. And then, you know, most important film of my life was Unshot on Delu by Louis Buñuel, and the same thing, it's ants coming out of an anthole. He was obsessed with them.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So Jane, I asked for 90 minutes, and we got 10 more minutes. Can you go 10 more minutes? And
Okay,
I really appreciate this.
okay.
These are 5 Alan Watts questions. They're just really brief. Who started it all?
What all?
Good. Are we going to make it?
Make what?
Where do we put it?
Oh, these Ellen Watts, of course, are expecting you to have
No,
a
you're doing
solid
great.
thing there.
No, you're doing great. You answered the first 2 with a question. That's fine.
Okay, well, I mean, yes, I could go on asking questions.
Who's cleaning it up?
I would say time.
Good. And the last one is it serious?
That's all a matter of perspective.
Very good. So just a couple more. Joseph Boyce said, make the secrets productive. Lou Welsh, another beat poet, said, guard the secrets, constantly reveal them. Thornton Wilder in 1928 said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time.
Artifice is beautiful.
Yeah. So you've laid your cards out on the table for 80 minutes here, and I'm really grateful. And I don't ask this question like you haven't. What's it really all about for you?
Well, when I was in my 20s, I was looking out a big picture window, and I thought, I want to understand everything. Yes, that's what I want to do. I want to understand everything. And I didn't do anything about it for a couple of decades or something, and then I was talking with my friend Betsy, and I said, I want to understand everything, and I want to love it. And then, like another 30 years went by, I was looking at another picture window that was in my little cabin, and I thought, I want to understand everything, and I want to love it, and I want to be able to write it down. And I heard this tittering up in the kind of a tittering, like, oh, that's very funny. I like, there was like a kind of a suspicion in my mind that I couldn't write it down.
Right.
But
you've written books, and we're grateful for your books.
I've written books, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad you're grateful.
I am. And the last question, Jane, and again, I really appreciate your time. This has been highly enlightening for me, is what gives you the most optimism?
Actually, a sense that other people are thinking along similar lines.
Yeah.
I do feel like I would like some of the things that I know to be known in the future.
Yeah. It's good. Can we ask if either of our dear friends who've helped us have a final question of any sort? Amy or John, do you guys have a question? No worries if you don't.
No real questions.
Go ahead, Amy.
Good job with your
Okay.
questions. Yeah.
No questions.
Yeah, your questions are good job.
No
Thank you, Jane. That was really fun. I really appreciate your
That was
time.
quite fun for me too.
Okay.
I actually have a question.
Okay, go ahead,
Okay,
John.
good.
When are you guys getting together to jam? So that I can see if it's art or not.
I don't actually play the banjo.
It's all right, he doesn't play guitar very well.
He doesn't play the guitar very well. Well, I do play the recorder, but I can never get the recorder to be in tune with the guitar. I just, very hard.
Well, we play what's called avant-garde improvisational music. So it's like you just bang away. And this is a big genre and a big business in the jazz world. But it sounds like anybody can do it. And one of the greatest of them all is a guy named Sun Ra. And you know, it sounds like kids just banging on the piano, and a guy came up to him and said, my kid could do that. And Sun Ra went, but can he transcribe it? But I mean, that's what we find being in the experimental film world, is that most people have not had the chance to form an aesthetic on experimental film. So they don't even know when they see it that it's another way of using this medium. So they go, this looks like a student film, or what is this? You know, they think it's just garbage. So that's just because they've never had a chance to form an aesthetic. So if you
I have looked at I don't know how many thousand experimental films, and I believe I know how to look at them. I also know how to listen to music often, although modern music is hard. But one thing that I look for is like the person, the energies of the person, and to look then at what they make as that. But I have somehow glutted myself on experimental film and tried to avoid seeing any of them anymore. It's like I have given a lot to the field, and I feel like, you know, don't demand any more on it.
That's good, because I said to David James once, I said, sometimes I like reading about experimental film more than watching it. And he goes, not me.
Go good on him.
Yeah, good on him. Well, we go to Ann Arbor every year and sit there for a week and watch it.
A month, yeah.
But it's like, you know, in 58 years, it has changed. And we still hope for the best, that someone is actually doing what the word implies, experimenting.
Experiment, yeah, I don't know, experiment, but...
It ends up you're watching a bunch of Nike TV
funny
commercials. That's what it is.
Oh, that's
But when you mentioned the fact that you don't like the word experimental, Betsy Bromberg said the same thing. She goes, my films are not experimental. I know what's coming out of it. It's not an experiment where we're waiting for results. She hates it, and she's a experimental filmmaker, but she doesn't like that term.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Stan would say I know what's going to be coming out. He would say, you know, the angels know what's coming out.
He'd say the angels?
He was quoting the Muse and quoting the angels, and he was, it was a strong influence on him.
Well, actually,
the higher power, you know.
This is funny, because I usually end towards the end of the interview with this, is Stan Brakhage said in 1983 at Telluride, I think the three greatest tasks for film in the 20th century, he doesn't say experimental film, he just says film, is one, to make the epic, that is to tell the tale of the tribes of the world. Two, to keep it personal, because only in the eccentricities of our personal lives do we have any chance at the truth. And three, to do the dream work, that is to illuminate the borders of the unconscious. And that's pretty good. And then I usually ask these people, because they're all smarty academic experimental filmmakers, I go, what are your 21st century updates? And they all go, hey, he said it all. And I goes, come on, that's what how do we push the boundaries if we're just good? Because basically what the experimental film world has become is all the students become clones of their teachers.
You know, Stan said something all across his life. He said, don't go to the dead people.
Yeah.
Let the living be seen. Not realizing, of course he did realize, that he would someday be one of the dead people.
Yeah.
But by being one of the dead people, he knew that he would be a legend.
Yeah.
And so that he was telling, don't do this that I can see that you're obviously going to do.
Yeah. That's all.
And so he was saying there was a bad thing to do that. At the same time, he was saying you're gonna do it.
Yeah, it works both ways. You want to study the past. Well, actually, Wyndham Lewis said it the best. Artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. So if you live in
you're pointing to the past, and you say the future.
Yeah, if you live in the present, then there is no past or future. You're living in the present. So that's what he said artists do. They live in the present.
Well, and the thing is that the living artists, while they're alive, have their chance.
Yeah.
To be seen and know it.
Yeah. This Hollywood director said we should all be. You'll love this. He says we should all become performance artists because the chemicals we use to make films is killing Mother Nature. I'm like, yeah, right. You're going to become a performance artist. Yeah, and then so who knows? It's like it's how we cope. It's the coping mechanism. How are we going to cope with this? Oh my God, I'm going to be in a room with other people tonight, and we're going to be this close. Oh my God, it's like you can get killed faster walking on the street by a car. People aren't in a panic about that. You make a list of all the things that kill humans right now. Coming in and out of the bathtub's number one, cars are two. So everything else is way down here. They're like, oh my God, I can't walk down the street. I'm going to get hit by a car. Yes, you might. So how are you going to cope with it? I'm going to cancel every public event. That's what they're doing. They canceled South by Southwest.
Yeah.
Big festival. It's like, what?
Epictetus, a great Greek, who was hundreds of years before Christ, said, "Why should I worry about the staves and swords of soldiers when I'm just as likely to die from a tile falling off a roof?"
That's
It's a nice anti-fear antidote, I always think.
Anti-fear antidote. I like that.
So I've got questions for you, Gerry.
Yeah.
So who was it who said cinema is much too rich a medium to be
Greenaway.
left to story? Who?
Peter Greenaway.
Oh,
Yeah.
just think another one I wanted to ask. Oh yeah, whose line is center without margins?
Center Without Margins is basically this French guy that McLuhan studied, Malraux or M-A-L-L. Malraux.
Andre, yeah.
Yeah, I think he got it from him, but it's pretty much this thing that what is audio is it doesn't end. That's why we don't have earlids. We have eyelids. If I go into an art museum, if I don't want to see a painting, I can shut my eyes and not see the painting. If I go into a music venue, I can put mufflers on my ears, close my ears, but it will still leak through. And so audio is more like a center without margins. There is some exceptions to it. Anyways, thank you again, Jane.
It's been a treat.
You are
really
a treat.
enjoyed it.
I appreciate it.